Can you hear me? Can I hear me? Anybody out there? I'm back. How's everyone doing? Another gorgeous morning out here, man. We've had a stream of weather for the last couple of weeks. It's just spectacular. I don't know what else to say about that. So yes, purpose of the call here, the meeting, pardon me, the video. Title of this video is, what do you mean I am volunteering to underwrite public debt / securities? Before I get into the meat of that, so I understand how you're in bondage, and you are, a couple of things I want to go over before we get into that. First is establishing a security interest. We've talked about using the reclaiming your securities process to claim that securities account, to take control of that securities account. And unfortunately, people get focused on everything I say and don't think outside of that box. But I was talking to a gentleman yesterday or day before, and I pointed out to him it is not necessary to take control of your securities account if one has property she wants to protect now. This gentleman is far from having his treasury process complete. So he was concerned what he could do. So I spoke with a fellow yesterday who was learning to reclaim your securities stuff and whose father passed without a will. Perfect opportunity. The estate has been held up by lawyers for 2 years. They're plundering the estate. I suggested he take control of the situation, being he is the son. Create a proxy and a security agreement in respect of this particular situation, not related whatsoever to the treasury process, and register the security interest on his father's registration of live birth. Then slam it down in front of those thieving lawyers with a few choice words to go with it. I won't tell you what those choice words are. You think about it because it's your butt, not mine. Next is who created the name. Still a lot of dialogue with respect to who created the name. The government created the name. Everybody but your mom created the name. So let's talk about that for a moment here. Let's just think about that for a second here. The countries, the states, the provinces, they're, as many will say, are corporations. So they're not capable of creating anything. So it wasn't them that created it. And probably if you ask government employees, did they create the name? What do you think they're going to say? Yeah, I did it. Or he did it. Or yeah, one of us did it 45, 50, 60 years ago. People, whose hand put the name to the paper on the registration of live birth, for heaven's sakes? So we're talking about your mom's the grantor, which is another thing people are clearly a misunderstanding. So anyhow, that name that mom comes from mom's hand, puts on the registration of live birth, is a clone of your name. A clone. Remember, we've talked about everything's a clone. They've cloned the churches, they've cloned the countries, they've cloned everything. It's form, substance, form, reality, cloned in form. However you got to get there. That name is a clone of your name. And in my world, I'm speaking for me here, everything stems from me, my presence on this planet here and now. The footprint taken at birth is to connect the child of God, the child of the light, the source of the commercial energy, the labor, the underwriter, to the foundation, security, registration of live birth. It represents that document. Get this now, listen up here. That represents the pledge of your labor. And you may have a much greater respect for that security by the end of this video. Please, people, don't get stuck on everything I say. Seriously, look at the Uniform Securitization Scheme, read those Reclaim Your Securities posts, all of them, and go through our Zoom meetings or recordings, all of them, to get the understanding. Without the understanding, you're just going to sit there and go, well, what did Vic say? Vic said do this, Adam said do this, do that, do it this way, not that way. Think for yourself, please. So those kind of set a bit of a tone there. And so this leads me to, how did the people come to be in bondage? And you're going to love this one. You're going to love this one. Just a little reminder here that the estate is actually, I'm talking the public estate represented by the registration of live birth. The estate is actually the securities for all, it's the surety for all of the securities that I will issue or the public will issue or have issued against my credit. Got to read here something from Colonel House. And I know many of you have seen this, but it's exactly fitting to what we're going to talk about here today. Very soon, every American will be required to register their biological property in a national system designed to keep track of the people. And that will operate under the ancient system of pledging. By such methodology, we can compel people to submit to our agenda, which will affect our security as a chargeback for our fiat paper currency. Every American will be forced to register or suffer being able to work and earn a living. They will be our shadows, and we will hold a security interest over them forever. Sorry, when I printed this one out, it came out very dull and I couldn't find a better quality, so I'm just struggling a bit to see what's in front of my face here. Security interest over them forever by operation of the law merchant under the scheme of secured transactions. Americans, by unknowingly or unwittingly delivering the bills of lading to us, will be rendered bankrupt and insolvent, secured by their pledges. They will be stripped of their rights and given a commercial value designed to make us a profit, and they will be none the wiser. Not one man in a million could ever figure it out or plans. If by accident one or two should figure it out, we have in our arsenal plausible deniability. So nobody's going to figure out, but possibly somebody might. So after all, this is the only logical way to fund government, by floating liens and debts to the registrants in the form of benefits and privileges. That's what they're deeming while you're pledging. That's the consideration. That's the benefit to you. That's the consideration. Well, I'm pledging to underwrite your debts in exchange for your benefits and privileges, which is capital B, bull, and capital S, hit, if you get my meaning here, crock. This will inevitably reap us huge profits beyond our wildest expectations and leave every American a contributor to this fraud, which we will call social insurance. Without realizing it, every American will unknowingly be our servant, however begrudgingly, and there are many worldwide. The people will become helpless and without any hope for the redemption, and we will employ the high office of the president of our dummy corporation to foment this plot against America. Okay, so let's go back in time here. Truth is, I don't know the truth of this, but I'm aware that they passed the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. The interest payments, so now they're borrowing money and they got to, pay interest on that money. So they're borrowing it from the bankers, so they give the privilege to print the money or create the money, so to speak. But that interest had to be paid in gold. And yes, eventually that gold ran out so that the treasuries were empty. Go back to Ed Griffith creature from Jekyll Island, where they went to the treasurer for a check. He says, "Oh, we don't have any money here." The treasuries are empty. So what did they do to fill that void? That's where they stepped up and they pledged our labor. That's what's underwriting the public debt, your labor. So just bear with me here. I had an inquiry about a week ago regarding the power of attorney. The concern was, we say mom is the grantor, but dad signed the registration of live birth. I hear that, I'm going, well, you people don't understand. The question caused me to realize some folk do not understand what the power of attorney is about, or why we secure the foundation security. Remember, this is all part of our reclaiming your securities information. That's a God glorious victorious day. Regardless of who signed the registration of live birth, the mother is the grantor. The power of attorney is about you. What you're getting power of attorney over is you. The pledge of your labor. That is what mom granted in the registration of live birth, is the evidence of the pledge, securities, futures. I'm going to read some stuff here from the Uniform Securitization Scheme, which is found at our blog, restoredthekingdomofgod.blogspot.com. Just click on go down, there's 3 buttons there. I'm amazed how many people go to that blog and don't bother clicking on those buttons and ask for more information. Like, people, there's buttons right there, click on them. There's information there for you. Anyhow, open up that document, the Uniform Securitization Scheme, and search the word pledge and study it. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit here from that document. And I'm not the author of that document, Bill is. The statement of live birth is a security. It is deposited to represent the original pledge of the child's future labor to underwrite the public debt / securities. Was it not mom that made delivery of the child to the doctor, the future pledgeor? Get it? Mom made the delivery. You're all looking at that. Then sometime after delivery of the child was made, delivery was made of the statement of live birth, of the registration of live birth. By so doing, and no will with it, mom, the grantor, unknowing to you or her, pledged your commercial energy into the system. And there it sits. So what we got going on here, they got us underwriting their securities / public debt issued against our credit. And you understand that it's got like a lot of light should come on here. And anyhow, if I can underwrite government, now here's the thing: if you go back to that audio, the 55-minute renewing your mind audio, it says the exact same thing here. If they can tap into our account and issue securities, can we not do it on our own? So here's the point: if I can underwrite government securities / debt, and we're all doing it, so we're underwriting their securities with our labor. Can I not underwrite my own securities with my labor? There's some argument here. Underwriting public, and just in addition here, underwriting public debt / securities means there is an accumulation of debt. That's the debt. That's the national debt. Whereas if you underwrite your own securities, there is no debt at day's end. Point here, people, our labor is underwriting their securities, the public debt. Okay. Our labor can also underwrite our own securities. There's no argument here. And if you think on this, you may conclude how it is most people on the planet are in bondage and what we can do to stop it. I cannot say enough about reading and rereading that Uniform Securitization Scheme PDF and search the word pledge, but don't limit it to that. This is where it began, people. So we're going back to where it began because there is a matter of no consent to be damaged by that. Unless, of course, you'd like to underwrite public debt as a debtor, a slave. I mean, all public issued securities, and by that I mean all public issued securities, bonds, charges, fines, tickets, income taxes, property taxes, so on and so forth. You're on the hook to underwrite that because of what your mom did, and you haven't done anything about it. Wow. Now, if something is not done about the pledge to underwrite the public debt, it is presumed continuously that you're volunteering. In fact, everyone's presumed to be volunteering. Like I think I showed you before, it says on the application for the social insurance number, participation is voluntary. Well, that's a secondary pledge, secondary security, because the registration of birth came first. That's the original pledge. Remember, how do you think the government's, when you're an infant, you're not out there producing anything, but how do you think the government funded your education or medical attention? It's going back to the original pledge. And there's some accumulated debt there for you as well from that, but that's another story. Now, if something is not done about the pledge to underwrite the debt, it is presumed voluntary. So, and all things are presumed unless proven to the contrary. So yes, we're going back to where it began because there is a matter of no consent to be damaged by that. No one's informed of this. Okay, so all things are presumed unless proven to the contrary. The question is, what am I getting at? What I'm getting at, did you consent to this? To consent means you have to make an informed decision. If you do not have all of the material facts, did you consent? Furthermore, right now you're volunteering, and equity will not aid a volunteer. I think most of you probably know that. Here it is, the basis of it. Go right back to your ground zero, day one. That's where we're going back to here. So when we say the estate does not consent to underwrite the case bonds and securities, we are saying, in a roundabout way, you're not going to draw my labor, my credit, underwrite any of your securities. That's all we're saying there. So now you know the reason for the lien. The reason to secure the foundation security. By securing that, you secure the pledge that the security represents. You're securing yourself, stopping them from tapping into your labor. They got to get to you through the estate, but you take control of that. They can't get to you. No, you're the only one that can take control. And furthermore, there are other ways to take back your freedom than purely the treasury process that everyone seems to be stuck on. Not thinking out of the box. I know I've talked about it, but I've said think outside of the box or suggested it. There are truly many roads one can take. I cannot emphasize enough to all those people that obtain our information package, read, reread, and read again the uniform securitization scheme and those reclaim your securities posts and go through our Zoom recordings. That's there for you. I don't have time to walk every individual that comes in here through the entire process one by one. That's why we recorded these things so people can go there and have it. So see, feel, taste, and picture those words. The message being conveyed. Sit on a rock by the lake, in the trees, whatever, by the ocean, in the forest, whilst thinking about what you're reading or what you read. As for the templates for guidance, truth is, those are there for the people who need them. I do not think people get that. What I did, I read the Securities, the Reclaim Your Securities Yahoo group posts. I made my own booklet to take with me, a combination of those various posts. So wherever I went, I could read and study up on that and stay focused. That was my focus. As the lights came on, I used that information in my own way. I have the power of attorney. I have the security agreement, the lien filing, and all the entitlement order, all of that stuff there and done, but I never used them. I didn't need to. There are truly many ways to utilize the knowledge outside of the scope of the information talked about in our Zoom recordings. I've emphasized that to people, but seriously. Anyhow, the information I shared here about how people came into bondage, in there is another way out. I've touched on it previously, and I'm not aware of anyone that caught it because everyone's focused on the paperwork and he said this, he said that. I appreciate that. God bless you. You're all in a quandary here. But seriously, I don't know how to say it. And again, to think outside the box. So anyhow, you may want to study up and read up on the doctrine of notice in respect of material fact. Rescission, void, voidable come to mind. Rescission restores the parties to their original position / status. Going back to the beginning, right? Not here now, back there. It's like a pardon, like it didn't happen. Do you see it? How you can undo all of this as if it never happened? So that the holder custodian of the registration of live birth would revert to the trustee, as it started off to be. And you can underwrite your own securities to help them out in the trust situation with no debt at day's end. It's the debtors that are the enemy of the state. It's the debt that's killing everything. In relation to that, the content of this video, you will find the word knowledge, notice, and good faith defined in the Ontario or Canadian Securities Transfer Act legislation, as well as UCC Article 8. Dealing with securities, knowledge. Did you have knowledge that mom, when mom did what she did, she was actually pledging your future labor? Did you have knowledge of that? Did you have knowledge that it's a security? Was your mom informed that it's a security? Work with me here. Use your head. Think outside the box. Seriously. So if I were you, I would open up, and again, don't limit yourself to here, but do yourself a favor, open up the Uniform Securitization Scheme PDF and search pledge and pay attention. Don't just read it. You know, I get people, oh, I read all this stuff and it only took me 2 days. Well, then you got nothing out of it. Nothing. I see read, I don't mean just like sitting back and watching a movie. I've gone through to, anyhow, I'm not, it's my business. So yeah, open up that Uniform Securitization Scheme and search the word pledge. Remember what Colonel House said, ancient system of pledging. We're underwriting their debt. That's the consideration. The consideration for us is those benefits and privileges. And I don't know about you, but those benefits and privileges are not worth what we're giving to them. So it's a situation of the uneven exchange and no consideration here. Last but not least, above all else, think for yourself. Don't try to remember, yes, think for yourself. Just going to pause this for a moment here and make sure I got everything in here that I intended to say. Thank you. So there you have it, people. It started with the registration of your birth, and unknown to you, what your mom did there. And the registrar, when they deposited that security represents the pledge of your future labor. There it is. That's the original pledge. So you take control. You see how everyone's in bondage here? It goes right back to like Colonel House said. That's the first one. Social insurance is a secondary one. That's another securities future that came after this. We're going back to the beginning. I'm not calling this fraud. I'm not going down there. There's no argument here. There's actually very, again, if I remember, I'll get to that. I'm not sure if I want to, but there's a, so that's what we're doing. Oh yeah. So like in fraud, if you discover fraud that happened 50 years ago or 40 years ago, there's no statute of limitations on fraud. You go back to as if it never happened. Everything is undone. The parties are restored to their position or status they had prior to the fraud. Same thing here with rescission. Read up on rescission. I've gone through a whole bunch of court cases and stuff just to make sure that my understanding of all that is what I think it is, and it is. And I've seen many court cases, read many court cases where judgments were issued, then it was found out that somebody didn't receive notice along the way. See, if you don't raise it, they didn't get notice. I didn't get notice that that's a security. Neither did your mom. So these things can be rescinded to go back as if it never happened, to restore the parties to their original previous or the original stand. Get back to our original position, so the parties are restored to where they were before the event occurred. So for us, that would be we pick up from our 18th birthday. But so yes, we're going back to ground zero, back to the beginning, and no one had knowledge. No one was notified. Oh, by the way, this registration of birth, this is a security. Your mom was not informed, neither were you. We informed that the birth certificate is a security. I wasn't, neither was mom. There's no disclosure. There's no knowledge is the word they use. Notice, knowledge, good faith. Where's the good faith in this? Now, here's the other thing. Think about this. This is just food for thought. I'm not telling you what to do with it. As I said, the governments went bankrupt. The only way that they could maintain their countries, and they are bankrupt. The fact that we're underwriting their debt, clearly they're bankrupt. They're not underwriting the debt. We are. If we all stopped doing that, they would just be gone, right? I'm not suggesting we do that, though. What I'm saying is they intended to put us on the hook. If they didn't, they would have made disclosure, maybe, but they didn't. And I'm not guessing why they did or why they didn't do what they do. I don't know. What I do know is that, okay, you guys wanted me to, you guys put us on the hook to underwrite your securities. I accept that. I will continue to do that, but I'm going to underwrite my own securities. What are they going to do? Say no? And if they say no, okay, well then we'll just do the rescission thing and go back to the beginning anyhow. And this is a win-win situation because again, with the rescission, undo everything, you get back. You enter into a contract with somebody and you give them a deposit, and then afterwards you find out something's not right, so you rescind it. Well, when you rescind it, you go back to your previous position, so your deposit will be returned. So whatever benefit you received, you have to give back to the other party. Whatever they receive from you, they got to get back to you. Well, we got nothing from the government, but they got lots from us. So read up on those things and see it for yourself that I've suggested in this video here. And it's huge, people. It's huge. But that, I just wanted to enlighten you a little bit on this if you haven't seen it, by going through those posts and expanding your horizons other than things that we are, the limitations of things we talked about here. I've said many times there's multiple possibilities here, many ways to achieve relief, different forms of it, depending what you're trying to do here. And there's simpler processes and ways and means that are simpler than others. But you won't have a clue if you don't get the understanding, and that's what the focus is. Paperwork without the understanding truly is a waste of time. Do open up that uniform securitization scheme, wrap your head around that pledge so you see what's going on from day one, the day you were born, what happened there, or the day that mom transferred the security, the registration of live birth to the government. That thing is deposited to represent the pledge of your future labor, when you're way back when. And it's been going on ever since, the pledge. It's a beautiful thing to have the truth, isn't it? It's the truth that'll set us free. My people perish for lack of knowledge. If you think about that from the Bible, my people perishes to die. I'm not actually dead, but legally I am. Because I just kept doing the pledge, and to do the pledge, I got to go into Wonderland where everything's dead. There's no life in there. Anyhow, it's the truth that'll set us free. Knowledge, notice, good faith. Just to clarify something here, when I said when you're taking control of that security, that power of attorney is taking control of you, your labor. What I mean by that is you're securing your labor by way of power of attorney over the security that was deposited and represents the pledge of your labor. That's what I mean by taking control over that security, you're taking control of and over your labor. So we're clear on that. It's not that the power of attorney is not directly to you, it's the security that represents the pledge of your labor. Follow me? Just wanted to toss that in there. Just want to, further on this volunteering thing. It's presumed we're volunteering because none of us actually stepped up and said yes and agreed, statute of frauds or anything like that, to keep this in mind here, statute of frauds. Yes, I agree to consent to underwrite somebody else's securities. I consent, I agree, blah, 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 by signing the undersigned here, consents, agrees to underwrite public debt in any amount. You can tax me to death in the process to pay me back. Go nuts, I don't care. Yes. Who did that? No one I know. I didn't. So it's voluntary. It is voluntary. On that basis alone. We're doing it, right? We're doing it. You're paying taxes. You're paying those traffic fines. You're paying those other fines. You're hiring lawyers to fight that stuff in court. You've done all of that stuff. You're partaking in all of that stuff. You're volunteering. You are volunteering. You didn't write, you didn't sign. For years, I used to think, I actually wanted to take it up in court, but I stopped going to courts and never had the opportunity. That was, the queries the judge, okay, I accepted, I applied for a driver's license, but where did I, when I signed for this, that I agreed to this nonsense going on here, this traffic fine stuff. Now I understand knowledge and notice better. So fact of the matter is, we never volunteered. Pardon me. We never signed up to volunteer. We are volunteering. We're doing it, but we never actually signed up to volunteer. And it's presumed we're volunteering because we're actually doing it, but we didn't sign anything. So here's presumption and backed by the fact that we're doing it. So what if you just say to yourself here for a second, just a second, but I didn't consent to this. Think about that. Think about that. George, did you consent to that? Steve, Mary, Susie, what, did anybody here consent to that? What are we going to do? Take him to court or withdraw the consent? Well, you can't withdraw the consent because you don't have the consent. You never gave consent. I just said I didn't consent. I didn't consent. Like I said before, if you enter into something absent of mirror, if you consent to something but later find out it was absent of a very pertinent material fact, it maybe probably would have caused you to make a different decision, but you didn't have that at the time. Did you consent? Well, I consented to this, but I didn't consent to that. Looks the same, but absent this piece of information or so, no, you didn't actually consent. You debated that there a week or so ago, a bunch of us. So they've never actually had consent. So withdrawing consent's really not the right thing to do because you never gave consent. So how might you deal with this? This is what you just got to ask yourself. Just got to quit. I just can't say I quit. I mean, if I was volunteering at YMCA or, the food bank or something like that, yeah, I could just quit. This situation here is a little more serious. And so you want to put a little more information in front of their face. I guess what I'm saying here, to justify. It could be in the form of a negative averment. Well, I haven't seen evidence provided that I got notice of this, that mom, when she provided before mom on her day, prior to or the day mom provided this registration of live birth document here, that notice was provided. That's a security. I never got notice. But I haven't seen her being provided with any evidence that I got notice. Mom hasn't seen her being provided with any evidence that she got notice. It says right here, notice is knowledge. Well, I never got notice. I don't have any knowledge. So you're all underwriting this stuff and nobody even knows why. No one has the knowledge. What I'm sharing with you here is the why. Let me rephrase that. I know it to be the why. You think about it for yourself. Don't just jump on. So you see a whole world open up here. And now here's the thing. Some people are going to go this way with it. Other people are, let me rephrase that. Some people are going to go this way with it. Others are going to go this way with it. I'm not saying which one I am. I'm not saying which one you are. I'm just saying it's two different paths here. Heart of God, mind of man. I say mind of man because the mind of man is overtaking the mind of God in here. That's our overall problem overall. If this was actually a God mind in play, then there would be none of this nonsense. We'd be in paradise. and then some. But anyhow, that's not the subject of this video. So yeah, people, I'm giving you the ground zero here, and think about it. Just ask yourself, run different scenarios through your mind. Well, like I say, I've seen. I was surprised actually how many court cases where judgments were issued against another party. There was maybe actually no knowledge of the proceeding at all, or was involved in the proceeding, but somewhere along the way didn't get notice of something important as part of that proceeding. And it wasn't until the one who didn't get the notice said something about that, then it had to be dealt with, and it was dealt with. And it was amazing how just look what the courts would rescind their own judgment orders, or the orders of other courts. And there's contract stuff. It was stuff between her people, Her Majesty. Most of it was corporate, but people. It's and it's when you understand that, it's bringing back the parties to the position they had beforehand. Most of you know what I mean. What that means when I say that. Your prior position. It's not going to take you back to infant, which is where it started. Your mom deposited the pledge or the security to represent the pledge of your future, that the infant's or child's future labor, because it's a child at that point, right? And but so with this, what I'm saying here is, by going back and saying, just a second here, I didn't consent to that. Is this maybe growing up? Maybe. So I've talked enough. It's good you guys get your head into this and think these things through yourselves, and look at the feel, like I say, see, feel, and taste, and go through that USS document, Uniform Securitization Scheme, and feel it, what's going on there. And this way is a little more complex. Not to say it's not right, can't be done, and it can. It's going to be a little more complex than this way. This one's kind of like agree with thy adversary. They've done something. They obviously wanted us on the hook. They had no other way to pay the bills, right? They had no way to pay their bills. The treasury's empty, no more gold. They wanted this to happen. So just think to yourself, okay, what if I accept it? But we're going to do a little innovation here. We're going to make a couple changes to that. And if they don't like it, well, then I'll just rescind. Then I could just pull out. Just pull out. Just so we're all clear on here, why we're going to the original pledge, day one, ground zero, is if notice hadn't been provided these registration of live birth documents, this piece of paper, but you know what I'm saying here. As a security and deposited to evidence represent the pledge of the future labor of the child, the infant, future. You start working, life, so on and so forth. But anyhow, so understand it. If everything was done on the up and up, and we had noticed that was a security, then why would you apply for an SSN or SIN number? Why would you get a driver's license? Why would you do anything the way you did? It would be a whole different situation, wouldn't it? Just like I'm the underwriter, not the beneficiary of benefits and privileges. No. I'm not doing this for that. Nothingness. So that's why if you understand what I'm getting at here, that's going back to the original pledge. Yeah, this SSN is a second pledge. Driver's license is probably a third. Credit cards, bank accounts, all that other stuff comes afterwards. And there's a difference between public and private. I get that, but we're talking about getting the parties back to the original position, right? So custodian, holder, trustee. So I believe that is it. And I'm going to put a kibosh on this now. It's a beautiful day out there. I'm going for a bike ride. From here, it's all downhill, right? But coming home, it's all uphill. That's the downside. It's all good. I suggest people, it's up to you. You got lots of information here to work with, and if you think on it, and like I say, the uniform securitization scheme there, and see what you can do stuff. But I would definitely not do anything here without understanding of securities, reclaiming your securities. And that's the kind of information we offer if you're interested. On that note, God bless. I bid you adieu. Till the next time.